Hi. I just wanted to. So basically, going back to March, I had a giant retinal tear in my left eye, and during that time, or between then and now, and maybe not so much now, but I've watched so many videos online that I found quite helpful, very helpful actually. It's quite a lonely place when this happened. I really didn't know what was going on, what what the future held, and it was all quite difficult. I wasn't prepared for it, as no one would be. So I did find those videos, lots of them, few that maybe I'll name, but it made me think that I wanted at some point to offer something back so that I could say something about my experience, things that I would do different, things that I would encourage people to do. Um, and at the same time, I know a lot of people, when they do these videos, they've sort of done it as they've gone along. Um, so after the operation, they would give like an update of how it was the day after and how it was a week after. For me, that would just be too stressful, because there was lots of times over the past few months where things have been really difficult, really stressful. I'm not good in those situations anyway, and I think um, to sort of explain a situation where I didn't even know what was coming next would not work for me. So in my case, I wanted to get to the end of the journey, and which I'm almost at. Well, but possibly, hopefully, and then I wanted to sort of explain the journey from start to finish, and then hopefully that could be of some use. I also don't want it to go on for hours because um, that's not probably going to be of any interest to anybody. Um, so I'll probably keep it quite brief. I may do a bit, go away, come back, do a bit more. So basically, back in March this year, I noticed that I had quite a few floaters in my left eye. I have had this before, and when I had it before, I went to the opticians, um, had a check. I think they did an OCT scan, and it was all fine. So when I started seeing the floaters, I wasn't particularly worried. It didn't initially seem like anything that I hadn't seen before. Um, but as things progressed over the coming days, the numbers of floaters increased, and I could also see what I believe now people often call like tobacco dust, which is almost like a brownish sort of very light, but almost like a layer in your eye that you see with these floaters. And I knew something was wrong. In my case, I was away working at the time. So I went to an optician's close to work early one morning. They did a test. Originally, they said they did the OCT scan. They looked at that. I said, "Oh yeah, that looks fine." Then they dilated my pupil, looked inside, and then basically said, "You've got a giant retinal tear." I think it was between 12 o'clock and 8 o'clock, I think. So they were really good. They phoned the hospital that was close to me and made me an appointment that day. Went there. They were really good. Turned up there at 3 o'clock. Didn't really wait for anything. Loads of tests, scans, photos, different people looking. And then I saw the consultant about 6 o'clock in the evening, and he said you need surgery and you need it quick. So he told me to come back 7 o'clock the following morning, which I did, and they did the operation. I didn't really ask any questions. I didn't have any questions to ask. I didn't have time. It was all just a whirlwind. I was just panicking. I just wanted to get it done. I trusted them, and I just thought that they'll do what they need to do. Um, Normally for that sort of thing, or I would normally be the sort of person that would want to educate myself on what they were going to do, or how they would do it, if there was different options, or if it depended on the problems as to what options would be taken. And obviously I'm not qualified at all in this subject, so who would I be to decide? But so they I came in at 7 o'clock the following morning. They did all the pre-op checks. I opted to a general anaesthetic purely because the thought of having all this going on and me being sort of awake, I didn't want that. And as I said before, I'm generally not great in these environments, hospitals, doctors. I don't like it. So they agreed as well, and that to go for the general anaesthetic, which I did. Um, they did the operation that morning. I didn't really speak to anybody after the operation. I did see one person just to say, how did it go? And he was like, oh yeah, it went well. And in my case, it turns out what they did is um, they did the vitrectomy. So it was the draining of the fluid, the gel behind your eyes, and then sort of pushing the retina into the right place. I had it lasered, quite a lot of lasering, I think. So everyone's told me since. And for me, they chose to use silicone oil. So there's two choices. Well, I think there's three, but the two for me would be the gas, um, which it seems some people, specialists, prefer, and then there's the oil, which, in my experience, the specialist I ended up with, he didn't seem so keen on oil, but he did also say, we weren't there when they did it, and they will have made decisions based on what they saw, and how it would best, give me the best chance of the best outcome, and that which is what we would all hope for in that situation. So I had the silicone oil, and they told me to I could go home. So I went home the same day, and all he said to me really was, I know you'll hear a lot about the posturing, and which tends to be more for people that have gas, but it did still apply for me. And basically I had to sit pretty much in the position I am now. I'm sort of sat on the bed, and basically said sort of 45 degrees. So my head was sort of looking at the corner of where the wall and the ceiling be, which isn't a great place to look for a week, but that's what I did. And I guess that because that sort of encouraged the oil to be applying pressure against the area where the retina had come away. So I did that. I was initially encouraged that I noticed that even a couple of days after the operation, I sort of discovered that this is like an old reading glasses that I had, and I discovered that I'm normally short-sighted, so I would normally have about a -1.5 prescription, left and right, approximately. So I think this is a +3, and I noticed that soon after the operation, if I held a +3 in front of my eye, I could focus on the wall, which was a bit confusing originally, because I was thinking, well, this is a +3, I'm normally a minus, what's going on there? But I think I did ask, and I think the reason given was that the oil, when you've got the oil, it interferes with the refraction and the direction that the light would normally pass through the lens onto the back of your eye, and it turns out that in my case this was putting the what I was looking at in as close a place. So I was encouraged by that because I thought, well, okay, I'm holding a really weird lens in front of my eye, but at least I do have vision. I didn't see any like curtains or any holes in the vision, or it all sort of looked quite encouraging. So I was pleased with that, um, and that gave me hope, um, going forward. I did find it really difficult with the oil, and the biggest problem to me was it was literally like every day. If you imagine, if you pick up somebody else's glasses, or like you might do when you're a kid, you put someone's glasses on, and it all looks really strange. It sort of looked like that for uh, 2 months in my case, which was as long as the oil was in. um, and it was, it sort of gave you a headache at times. Sometimes I found just putting a patch on it uh, was good. Sort of help the eye. It's not straining it too much. Sometimes I would just do that, um, but I did find it quite difficult, um, very difficult at times. And during that sort of first week after the operation, I remember feeling just incredibly grateful for the people that had done the operation, and the speed that they'd done it in, because I'd read since and seen on YouTube and read about people that go through a situation like I did, and then just get sort of pushed around, and oh yeah, we'll give you a ring, and I'll come back tomorrow, and and this, as you will all know if you're watching this, time is of the essence. You've got to get on with it, and you want to do everything you can to make sure that um, you get on that journey. You don't want any delay, and I'd possibly already delayed it a bit by, obviously, when I mentioned before that I had the floaters, and I thought, well, I've had them before, I knew that it was possibly something I needed to check, and I probably should have, but I am where I am now. I can't do anything about that. Um, so so yeah, the first week was, um, it was worrying, but like I said, I was grateful. Um, I was I was feeling, sort of quite optimistic, I think. And then the decision I had to make, because I was away working when this happened, and I was obviously going to have to be going back, which I did go back a couple of times to see them. The follow up, where they, just really look in the back, check the retina's still attached, and check for, yeah, I think, inflammation and the drops. I think the pressure tested. At one point, the pressure went up after I started using one of the drops. So then there was another drop to bring the pressure down. So there was a bit of juggling with that. And then I sort of had to make the decision about what I wanted to do going forward. Did I want to stick with where I was for the sort of continuation? Because the thing with oil opposed to gas is at some point the oil has to come out, thankfully. And normally in the UK, um, that procedure was done on the NHS, and normally the sort of time frame they were quoting me after the operation was between 3 and 6 months. So the oil would stay in for between 3 and 6 months, and then they take the oil out. They said you would then have a cataract, because one of the effects of the oil is it sort of fogs your lens, so you would need a new lens. I don't think that would have happened at the same time. I think that would have been later. Um, so I came to the decision, where I live. I'm about an hour away from Manchester, which has got I think it's the second biggest eye hospital in Europe, which is quite handy, I suppose. Um, And I had a look around on Google and I found a couple of people, and one or two names kept popping up all the time. So I contacted them, and initially I thought I'd go and see someone. I just wanted like a second opinion. Just wanted someone to look in my eye, look at what had been done, and look at if I was on in a good place, sort of thing. So I went to Manchester, saw a guy um, who I mean I initially when I saw him I thought he was very thorough. Oh yeah, the other thing was when I went to see him the first time, he was looking in my left eye and he was checking it out. Said, "Yeah, still attached, still lasered. It's got oil in, all that sort of stuff." And then he started looking in my right eye, and he spent quite a lot of time looking in my right eye. And then my wife was with me, and she said at some point you just noticed the look on his face just changed. And then he looked at me and said that he'd found a tear, a small tear in my right eye, and he wanted that needed emergency treatment now. So he sent me to see somebody this was at Manchester Eye Hospital, downstairs, and then somebody within an hour or so basically just lasered. I think it was like a tiny tear. I think he described it as like a horseshoe tear. It's very small, but he said it would have progressed. And the likelihood is the fluid goes behind it, which is not what you want, because that's like the fluid behind the paper pushes it off. Um, so um, so they spotted that, which was obviously great. I was so lucky that no one else had spotted that. All the people that had looked at it, no one had spotted that. I don't know when it happened, obviously, but so that was good. And then he also recommended, although there was a few weeks in between it, but he said you might want to consider having 360 laser on your right eye as well. He said some it's one of those where some consultants, some hospitals think that's a good thing and some think it's a bad thing. They thought it was a good thing. So in the end, I went with what he said. I trusted him straight away, and like I said, I'd done my research on him, and I liked him. He was very thorough. So I think probably a couple of weeks after that, I had the 360. So I'd had the initial emergency preventative laser followed by 360 all the way around. Didn't have any side effects, but that's not nice. It was quite painful. It's literally like when they do it, they dilate your pupil, and you just sit with your chin on this rest, and then he's literally like almost like a PlayStation, I suppose. He's looking through a lens that they sort of attach to your eye to hold your eyelid open. And then it's literally just a case of every time he pushes the button, you hear like a beep, and then you feel this like burn. And sometimes it really was not nice. It probably took about 20 minutes, and it wasn't particularly nice. But it's not meant to be, is it? It's meant to be there for stopping what could have happened. Um, so that was that, and then there was a lot of. I think round about that time I was probably going back every. I can't remember now actually, but it was fairly frequently, maybe every 2 weeks, maybe sometimes a bit less. He was very good that if I was worried about something, I could just contact him, and um, he would fit me in and go. He said if you're unsure, just get in touch. So I did, not very often, but occasionally if things were I was worried about. I did get in touch. And his plan was for the silicon oil removal to be at 2 months. So I think my operation was on something like the 21st of March. So we were sort of looking about the end of May, early June. Ended up being, I think, the 5th of June, when he had the oil out. He spoke to me a lot about the oil. He was completely upfront with what may happen. There's something you can read about called unexplained vision loss, which is associated with silicon oil and its removal. So it's something that happens after the oil is removed. I don't think I think there's all sorts of theories as to why it could happen, but it's one of those things, hence being called unexplained vision loss, where they don't actually know why it happens. And I can't remember the percentages, or but there is, like all risks to do with surgeries, there was a percentage. So he told me all the risks. Obviously, he hadn't been involved in the first operation, so it probably wasn't ideal for him either, because he was sort of picking up halfway through the process. So he also, I suppose, didn't really know exactly what he was getting involved in as he started the removal process on the 5th of June, which was, where are we now? We're 16th of July, so I'm about 6 weeks after. So on the 5th of June, he said to me the plan was he was going to, all at the same time, he was going to take the oil out, he was going to change the lens. So that was the cataract operation. So we'd previously spoke about, what focal point I wanted. I didn't go for a multifocal lens. It wasn't even discussed really, but I'd sort of again read about it and didn't really see the benefit, because I would have to wear glasses anyway, because I need to wear glasses for my right eye anyway. So I had the oil out, I had the cataract operation at the same time, again under general anaesthetic, and then he also did, I can't remember what the technical name is, but I think there was some scarring on part of my retina. I think it might have been quite central. I don't think it was severe, but again, he said that whilst he was in there, he just wanted to get as much done as he could. He doesn't want to do one thing and then do another. It's quite invasive. You get I think 3 holes into your eye. So I've still got some scarring on the white of my eye, and so he wanted to do it all at once. I remember him using the term peeling, which is, again, I looked it up. I spent far too much time looking up this stuff. But yeah, it looks like basically they just take a very thin layer, but peel off the retina, and removing the scarring, not peeling the retina off, but the scarring off the retina, if I understand right. So all that was done, and he told me, when we spoke about it before, he said there's 3 ways it can go, the operation. He said one is the retina behaves and it stays put, and if that's the case, we take the oil out, we do all the other jobs, and then I think they sort of inflate the eye with, it might have just been air or a saline solution of something, and that would have been that. The other option was the retina stays detached, but it's misbehaved a bit, or something's not quite gone to plan, and in that case, he said he would probably then put some gas in, and the gas is literally just like a bubble, really, and a bubble inflated, which again just keeps the pressure of inside the eye up, and again helps to hold the retina in place, I guess. But that's the same type of gas I mentioned before, which sort of just is absorbed by your body over time, so you don't have to have a procedure to get that out. And the final option was, he said, if it doesn't go well and the retina detaches again, then he would have to put oil back in, and that's what I really didn't want. I really didn't want oil back in again. I just wanted to get that oil out. I didn't like that at all. So I remember I had the operation. I came round from the operation, and I remember seeing him. He was just like gathering his stuff together, and he looked over. He saw I was awake, and I said, how did it go? And I remember him going, it went really well, really well. So I thought, brilliant. And then I saw my wife, and he'd been to see her, and he said that the retina had been fine. It had all gone to plan. There was no complications. So it just inflated, if that's the right word, with, like I say, I think it was air or maybe some saline. I had a bandage on. He said, go home, take the bandage off in the morning, and then go back to see him, which is what we did. So I went home. I had such a great night's sleep. He told me, everything's gone well, and I was relieved. I'm glad it had all, felt like I'd finally started making some progress. And then I woke up in the morning. No one else was up. I was obviously quite keen to get the bandage off because I just wanted to see what I could see. I remember going into the bathroom, a mirror in front of me, and I took the bandage off, and I couldn't see anything out of my left eye. When I say I couldn't see anything, if I held my hand here, I could see my hand was there, but if it wasn't for the fact that they were my fingers, I wouldn't know how many fingers there were. I couldn't see anything, and I thought, this probably isn't what everyone was expecting, because I had all the positive feedback the night before. I didn't panic, but I went back to see him, and I think he was surprised when I said, he said, how is it? And I said, I can't really see. And I remember him holding fingers up, going, how many fingers am I holding up? And I was like, I don't know. I can't see. I can see your hands there. I can sort of make your hand out, but I can't see it. So he was quickly then. He was looking in the back of my eye, and he said, I was asking him, as a retina come off, and he was like, no, the retina is attached, but I can't remember how he described it, but basically he said the retina was sort of like all sort of if you imagine some foil where you squeeze it, and it's it's not flat, it's all sort of jagged, and I think the reason being in my case was, another thing he did was check the pressure of my eye, and when they test the pressure, I understand now that the normal range is between 10 and 20. I don't know what the units are, but between 10 and 20. And he did mine, and I can't remember what it was. It was either like 0 or 1 or something. So basically there was no pressure in my eye. So it was like a flat ball. So instead of it, being like that, it had just deflated. That was why my vision was so bad. And also, he said I remember him saying it's a risky time. He said the next week is going to be really important. You need to wear the protection patch, like the sort of shield. You're at risk of, I think, like a hemorrhage or a bleed behind the eye. And again, being the professional that he was and the perfectionist, he wanted to double check that the stitches that he'd put in my eye the night previous, that they were like tight, so that it wasn't due to the fact that anything had sort of was leaking out, as to which is why I'd lost this pressure. So he'd arranged for them to sort of squeeze me in. I think I actually went in like when it would normally be lunchtime for the theatre or the staff, and he got somebody to do that, and basically that was for them to check that all the I think there was three sort of stitches, if you like, three holes, and they were all fine. And the other thing that they did was they sort of inflated my eye again with a gas this time. So the gas that I mentioned before, they put a gas in and said that would sort of only be there for a couple of days. I think depending on what gas they use, sometimes they can use gas, it'll hang around for a few weeks. Sometimes they can use it and it's just a few days. I think this one was a few days. And also I think there was some sort of fluid that they put in. So they did that, and then I went back, sat down, and waiting to be told I could go. And the consultant that did that procedure came to see me, and they said you could, you could go, but before I go, they wanted to check the pressure in my eye again. And when they pump the pressure up, you literally feel it. I can't really describe it, but if you imagine somebody pumping something into your eye and your eyes getting bigger and bigger, you sort of feel that pressure increasing. So I could feel that pressure increasing during during that procedure, and so they wanted to check the pressure before I went home, bearing in mind that they just raised it literally half an hour before. So they took me into a room, did the pressure, and it was already nothing, or 2 or 3 or something. So it had come from wherever they'd set it, which I don't know, maybe 20 or maybe 25 or something like that. But wherever they'd set it at, basically in half an hour it had all gone. So I was basically back where I started from. So that was, I was devastated at that. Because what they were saying then was that when you have the silicone oil, because the oil is in your eye for so long after the first operation, the fluid that your eye would normally produce on like a daily basis, fluid gets absorbed, it gets replaced, absorbed, replaced. That basically your eye stops producing that because it doesn't need to, because you've got the oil. So it says, I don't need to do this anymore, so it stops. And then sometimes it starts again, sometimes it doesn't start again, sometimes it gets delayed. And they did say to me that if it doesn't recover, they wanted to give it the best chance they could. But if it didn't recover, then the only option then would be to put oil in the eye, and that would be it. It would stay in. It would be a lifetime thing, I think. It was a slightly different type of oil, I think, and I really didn't want that. I really didn't want that. So that was like, that week post-op was like really difficult. I couldn't move. I was basically just lying down all the time. I was aware that I had to be careful with my eye. I couldn't knock it. I was prone to bleeding. I was prone to, the sort of vision problems because of the low pressure. And then they changed one of the drops. I was on a steroid drop, and I think initially I was on it like every hour. I was putting this drop in every hour. I had 4 drops after the operation. There was like an antibiotic, there was a steroid, I think there was like a relaxant or something. I can't even remember what the other one was. But there was 4 drops that were some were fairly frequent, some were a couple of times a day. But this particular one that they told me to do every hour for the first day, then every 2 hours, and then eventually I think it went to 4 times a day. So they did that, and I was, in that week I was backwards and forwards quite a bit. I think another day we went back and the pressure was still low. It was like 3 or something. So I think everyone was trying to be positive. it's not one, or it's obviously very low, but it was at least going in the right direction. And then so it's like I say, probably in that week I was probably maybe saw him 3 times or something, um, just for him to be checking. And one time I went to see him, and I remember when I got there, I trying to remember what I explained to him, what I was feeling. Um, I said that I can't remember my vision, whether the vision had improved at all. I remember the vision improved, but I remember it was really cloudy. So whatever I was beginning to see things, but it was just like really cloudy, literally like you were looking through a smoky room. It looked like that. And as I was saying it to him, I could hear, I was watching him. He was taking in what I was saying, and he was saying, I I think a lot of what I described to him is what happens when someone's pressure is too high. So mine had been too low, and he was sort of like, I remember him saying, he said this could be because the pressure is too high now, and he was excited by that. I remember that. And he said there's lots we can do when pressure's too high. There's lots of different ways we can tackle that, but when pressure's too low, there's not a lot we can do. We can do the drops that you've been on, but other than that, there's not a lot we can do. So if we can get it too high, okay, that's not ideal, but it's considerably better than being too low. Um, so he did the pressure, and it was 29. And I remember then I really felt like jumping for joy. I remember him saying, you're out the woods, you've been on that stormy week, was how he described it, where it was a bit of, it can go this way, it can go that way. But we'd got to the point where we'd got to 29, which was too high. So then he gave me another drop, and then there was a week of sort of regulating that. The drop that he gave me was to bring the pressure down, and then the pressure went down too far, so then we came off that a bit. And so again there was lots of backwards and forwards, and I think in the end the pressure sort of settled round about, sort of between about 10 and 14 seems to be where the pressure in both my eyes seemed to sort of be about the same. So that week post-op was um, undoubtedly the worst bit of it. But at the end, I thought, we've got through it. Where am I now? So I'm now at 6 weeks post operation. And so, first of all, I am like so grateful for what everybody did. The people that did the emergency operation, in the speed they did it, the people that have helped me at Manchester, the people that have looked after this, all these people, saying thank you just doesn't seem enough, and it's so difficult. There's not really much else you can do, is there? I found myself saying thank you all the time, but I just remembered, these people that help you, just amazing, really, amazing. Um, I've never really been the sort of person that had been ill or had, time in hospitals or anything. So it was all new to me, but I was just so grateful, really. Um, so I think, although I think things could still improve for me, um, I don't know. He. So where I am now is I have a very good right eye, very good. I think sort of better than average. So on my left eye, I have full field. I have no dot, no sort of missing patches. But what I have definitely noticed in my left eye is that I just cannot sort of resolve detail to the level that I could before. So for that, I mean, so I guess that is like the macula in your eye is the area that does all the fine detail for when you're like reading or if you're looking at your watch, I guess, that sort of thing. Uh, and for me, I like if I cover my left eye, I can't like read a computer. I mean, um, I've made the text bigger. Sometimes, sometimes things that are brighter are easier. But there was a period of time, although I must admit I don't notice that so much now. There was a period of time, like if I looked at black text on a white background, I would see some of the letters would be black, some would be grey, some would be like almost white. It was quite sort of patchy. But now I come to mention it, I don't know if that is quite as bad as it was. So, and that was only like 10 days ago. So maybe maybe things could improve. The other issues that I had after the first operation with all the laser treatment, I think again something I sort of picked up was that I think there was possibly some nerves that were damaged in my eye, so my pupil in my left eye isn't as responsive as it was. So quite often, if it's bright, my pupil will still remain quite big compared to my other eye, and so that's like wearing sunglasses, and obviously your depth of field is a lot. It's just not as easy to see detail with. You spend a lot of time when you're going for these tests. They give you these things to hold over your eyes, with pinholes in, and often when you're looking at a chart and they're trying to see how far down the chart you can go, if they hold one of these pinhole things over your eye, you can see further. And I think when I asked the question why that was, it's basically all down to the fact that those little pinholes with the black surroundings is sort of simulating, if you like, your pupil being more closed, and your depth of field being better. Um, so yeah, I mean, I can see I can see everything, um, and it's amazing how your brain, I don't know how, but your brain just somehow pieces it all together. So I don't really feel. The only time that I know something isn't right, when I'm walking down the street or when I'm at home or looking at a computer or whatever, is literally when I do that. And then I notice the fact that I can't really read. Um, Glasses do improve it, but not massively. Um, so I feel quite fortunate the fact that the real positive for me to take is what they identified in my right eye and hopefully prevented. And obviously, I'm like going to be really clued up with that and a thing. I'm going to sort of make sure I just go and get checked maybe every 3 months or something once I'm finally done with all this. Um, so generally, I find some days are better than others. I find that probably my eye does get tired sometimes if I'm, whether it be for work or just doing close action at home. That sometimes your eye, I suppose it's like straining, isn't it? Because it's trying to focus on something it can't focus on. So sometimes if I have a day like yesterday where I just thought I'm just going to not do anything today, I'm just going to like laze around, I'm just going to not do anything, and I feel the benefit of that today. Um, I'm still having the eye drops, but because they're a steroid, you sort of taper off the drops. So and I've had them for so long, really. So sorry. Um, I'm now on twice a day. Was on 4 times a day. Did 3 times a day for a week. Now 2 times a day, and then 1 times a day. But I think he's also thinking, because I did ask about whether there was any sort of symptoms that I'd been experiencing over the last few days, whether they could be due to sort of weaning off those steroids, which I think they could. This video's got far too long. I didn't really want it to go this long, so if anybody is still watching, um, I hope it's of use to somebody, um, and I would I would I would say, I mean, it's so obvious, isn't it? Now, really, is just if you go down this route or you get dragged into this, you know, just do not be sort of pushed aside, even if you end up having to drive somewhere else, or just, and if you're, you should be expecting to be seen, um, as soon as you can. Um, it's easy to say that, isn't it? Because obviously, if there's 10 people that all need to be seen at the same time, then obviously they can't. So, but yeah, I think it's just speed. If you are in a position to do a bit of homework, do a bit of homework. If you've had scares in the past, just know where the places to go are. And and I think for me, it's, I'm what am I, 57, 57. And I know this has happened to a lot of younger people. I've seen videos and stuff. People are happening in the 20s, 30s, 40s. And for me, I remember as a child at primary school, I remember my granddad had problems with his eyes, both of them. I didn't really know why, but it makes me wonder whether this is in some way hereditary. So if 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 you do know of any history in your family, then I would definitely keep that as a marker, and as an extra special kick to, like, anything at all. You know, just go somewhere. An optician's is a good place to start, because at least someone who can look in the back of your eye. So I think for me that might have been the case. There wasn't anything that happened. It wasn't like a fall, a head bang, whatever. It literally just happened, which I believe that seems to be just as common as, if not more so, than people that get it after a sporting accident or car accident or something like that. I think I've sort of explained what happened to me. The outcome is now I'd have good days and bad days. I go back to see him again in about a month, and I'm hoping that by then, I will sort of then go to. I will certainly try to orchestrate a visit in about 3 months, just to see, just to get him to look in my eyes, because I sort of feel quite nervous about going anywhere. I feel quite nervous about going on holiday, and going on holiday out the country, because I sort of feel quite stressed by if I was out the country, and I wasn't sure about something. How would I deal with that? How would I get to be seen? I've been in an environment where I am now. I know exactly where to go. I know exactly how to make that happen. Obviously, if you're in another country, then it's completely different starting. And obviously, there's a thing about insurance now, which presumably that's something I'll have to look into at some point, because insurance companies don't generally like insuring things where there might be an increased risk. So that's something I'll probably have to look at as well. So for me, travel at the moment just doesn't seem top of my list, and I probably want to maybe write that off for this year and maybe see how I feel next year. But I have a family, so I don't want people to go without. But at the same time, I think they all realise that obviously this is important. Um, so yeah, I hope this has been some use, and I hope that none of you go through it. But if you are, I would say, be positive. There's definitely reason to remain positive. This was a giant tear. I think, like I said, I think if I was honest, I think I probably left it too long. But be positive. These miracle workers every day that do this work, and how lucky are we that these people are about, Um, so I was able to stay positive, and that's obviously important. And what I think I'll do now, I'll stop, and if there's anything that I feel I should add before posting, I will, and then I'll upload it. I've no idea if anyone will ever discover this. I don't post anything on YouTube. That's not really my pastime. But I think I've covered everything. So it was a giant retinal tear. Silicone oil was chosen for me. When the oil was taken out, there was the period where the pressure in the eye was very low. That was a dangerous time, I believe. My eye did recover that and has maintained it since. The vision is fine. Vision is fine in terms of if I wear my glasses for my right eye and left eye. I have 6/6 20/20, depending on where you are in the world. My vision is fine. If I do that, I think my vision in my left eye. I'm trying to remember what it was. I think it was something like 6/18. I think, which I think means that I would. So where I can read the chart as someone with good eyes could also read that chart from 18 meters. So there's quite. It's obviously not. It's not perfect, but I can see out of it. I've got full field of vision. I can drive. The world doesn't look any different to me. All I know is that I can't really read. So all I hope and pray for is that my right eye just behaves itself, and then this is just one of those things. And the other thing that I would say to people is that a lot of bad things happen. Hospitals are full, people are ill. This isn't great, but it could have been a lot worse. Could have been a lot worse. There's a lot of people that would swap with someone that's had a detached retina. It's not a great thing, but it's not like life threatening. People, it could be life changing, but it's not life threatening. So just be positive, and if I can answer any questions, then I will. And like I said, the reason why I've just blitzed it in one go is that for me it would have been too stressful to do it all in stages, because I wouldn't really know what was going to happen next, and I wouldn't be able to. I would not have been able to make a video saying I've just had the operation, back to the 5th of June, taken the patch off, can't see anything. I was just too stressed. I couldn't be doing that. So anyway, that's it. I'm really sorry it's gone as this wasn't what I planned. I suppose there's more to say than I thought. But I wanted to do it just because I found it really, really helpful. The videos, the people that posted, because it just makes such a difference when you're wondering what's happening, when you listen to someone who tells you the same thing. And quite often I did that. I would reply to people that had posted a video, and I would say about whatever it was, and they would come back and say, yeah, I definitely remember feeling that. And that's great, isn't it? It's reassuring, and you also know that other people have gone through it and come out the other end. So there you go. It's under an hour, isn't it? 54 minutes. So we'll call it a day there. Wish you all well, and I hope this is of use to someone. Cheers for now. Bye.